Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and this is Ginny O Talks, the part of the channel where I talk about things in the creative community. And today, I want to talk about the stages and steps of getting your book published. And there's a couple you probably know about and a couple you probably don't. I was re-listening to my Department of Justice versus Penguin Random House video, and I realized I didn't explain very well what I meant about how there were 5 chances and they're going to be going down to 4, because I also talked a lot about the different imprints within a publishing house. And one of the kind of stages and steps to getting your book published is something you think about back here in the back of your mind. Did you know it's there? But it doesn't come up to here, to the front of your mind, to be really like, oh, yes, I still have to get through this. And so I was listening to a round table of Jane Friedman on YouTube about the whole situation, and one of the authors actually said the quiet part out loud. So I would like to kind of reiterate the quiet part, I guess, and explain more about the stages of what happens after you finish your book. Now, on my website, I have a post-fiction production guide called I Finished the Book, Now What? A tongue-in-cheek guide to what happens next that goes over the whole querying process, helping you choose, do you want to go to traditional publishing or do you want to try to do self-publishing? And it goes through the stages of what happens with each one. And it's a free, yes, free PDF. It's on my books page. If you scroll down to the bottom, if you hit the horses, you've gone too far. There are 3 free PDFs about what happens after you finish your manuscript. One is the querying process, basically. One is editing, and one is more about self-publishing if you're not trying to deal with the Amazon or Wattpad algorithms. So that one needs some editing, but itself. But those 3 there are on my books page on my website. So, and I'll be referencing I finished a book. Now what? Probably the most in this video. So the stages or the steps, or we could even call them the gatekeepers from getting your book from manuscript form to onto a bookshelf in a bookstore. So the first one might not be one you think about either. So you finished a book. Yay! Congratulations! I am so proud of you. You should be so proud of yourself. Now go get a gelato, reward yourself with some sort of treat. You deserve pizza and ice cream, basically. Good job. Not a lot of people actually do that. So, what's the next step after that? And you're thinking, well, now I need to find an agent. No. No. Now you need to have your book edited. Now there are like 3 ways you can go about this. Okay, you can hire an editor. And what I mean by hiring an editor is I'm not talking about going and hiring a content editor, a line editor, or somebody who's going to correct your spelling and grammar. I'm talking about going and hiring somebody like me, a development editor. A development editor is going to help you with your characters, your world building, your structure, your pacing, your tension, all those things that writers don't want to hear about that's wrong with their book. Or they think because you're telling them to change it that it's wrong. I have recently done a video about this called Write What You Love, What Makes You Happy, Write What You Want, and then edit. Editing is not about you. It's not about being wrong. It's about presenting your work in a way that the readers will be able to understand it. Okay, readers are not up here in your head. They're not up here, they can't read your mind. So you have to have your book edited in a way that it is coherent and it gets everything. I mean, you love the characters and the way they interact and the world building and all that out onto the page in a coherent way. You know, maybe they don't need to know, you know, this piece of information yet, so you need to hold back that piece of information to the right time. You know, maybe they need to, you know, maybe these characters need to interact more. That's what a development editor does. Okay, the development editor is there to help you take everything out of your head and put it onto the screen in a way that the characters, then, you know, your vision will be translated properly to the audience you want. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can do this. You can teach yourself. I highly, strongly recommend you start learning to read analytically, whether that's independent books or traditional books, and teach yourself how to edit. I have the second post-fiction production guide is called 16 Signs Your Book is Not Ready to Be Self-Published and Other Things You Should Know. And it's 16 things I've noticed that are in books that could be done better. I don't want to say they're done wrong, I just want to say they could be done better. Uh, so, you know, it's very important to say, you know, your book could be better. I don't believe in bad books. Period. I believe in, you know, poorly edited books. Your book could be better. Doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it could be better. Okay, so that 16 signs goes over things like flat characters, prologues, kidnappings. I have a guide to writing romantic chemistry in there, which could also be applied to friendship. There's things like just 16 different things that I noticed as I was reading independent books that came up over and over and over and over again. And it also goes into things like the two cake syndrome. Like, a lot of times you're going to hear that agents don't want a project that's similar to a project they already own on their list because they're afraid the authors are going to get mad at each other, which is dumb. Which is dumb, but hey, you know, they're dealing with author egos. How dare you take another urban fantasy author? I want to be the only urban fantasy author on your list. Who really cares about this? So, but readers love reading similar things, and they don't necessarily care about the quality, or, you know, they don't care that your book, you know, it's just a 2-layer cake with, you know, with a scraping of frosting on the outside and little pieces of fruit on top of it. You know, they don't care, you know, compared to this really established author who's got a 3-layer cake with layers of buttercream frosting and fancy piping and, you know, and pipe buttercream flowers. They don't care. All they care is that the cake is similar to the cake they've already ate. You know, you both have a chocolate cake. So who cares? You know, once you cut it open, it's a chocolate cake. It's an urban fantasy book. They just want to read more urban fantasy because they love urban fantasy. So that's you know, 2 cakes. So that's the first thing. You can teach yourself to edit by, say, downloading my post-fiction production guide or going to Tumblr and finding lots of free writing guideline posts there. There's a lot of them, and I have seen like really great stuff, and from stuff that's not even technically writing advice blogs. So when I find this really good stuff, you know, On Tumblr, I try to reblog it. Like, I just recently reblogged within the past month this, does your book feel flat? Use the acronym STUDY to figure out why. And I was just like, that's really cool. Go you. I'm going to reblog that, okay? So there's a lot of writing guideline advice out there that you can teach yourself to analyze your book to make your book better. Or you can once again hire somebody like me, a development editor, to help you figure this out. Maybe, maybe it's just too close to work. Or thirdly, you could find a writing group or a group of beta readers. Now, I'm not saying go down to the library and join a writing group of other amateur writers. That is probably the worst thing you could actually do. Because a group of amateur writers at your local library, they're all going to have opinions about what you should do to fix your book, and if you don't do it, they're going to get very, very offended. So what you need is a group of readers or a group of writers who read and write in your genre, who are like, love your genre, love your type of book, and they can read your book and read it analytically, or read it and say, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. And leave it up to you to figure out how to fix that. Like, I got here and then I got bored, type of thing. Or I got through, this is confusing to me. Could you explain this better? Do you explain this later in the book? So that's what a good reader group will do. They won't tell you how to fix things. They will tell you, this is what went wrong. This is what is going wrong for me. That's kind of what a good editor does as well. They will say, this isn't working for me, but a good editor has the tools in their toolbox to be able to say, this is what you can do, this is what you could consider doing to fix it. Whereas, a reader group is just going to leave it up to you to say, to fix, to figure out, okay, what's going on here and how do I change it so, it's more intense and exciting or whatever. So that's your first hurdle, because finding those type of people is really, really hard. You think finding an agent is tough. No, finding an agent is pretty, finding the list of agents, that's really easy. Sending out all the stuff, that's just secretarial work. Finding an editor you like and you trust, and finding a group of readers to get what genre you're writing and love your genre that you're writing, whether it's urban fantasy or science fiction or paranormal romance, whatever it is, that's hard. Because, outside of the editor, you're probably not going to be paying these people. So it's like, you got to find people with free time who really want to do this. So that's your first hurdle. And the reason why this is your first hurdle is because there aren't a lot of editors in the industry. So it's on you to edit your book as much as possible, as much as you can, before you put it in front of an agent, before you put it in front of a publishing house editor, things like that. Because they're not going to do it for you. You're not going to get 2 or 3 edits anymore from a publishing house. You get 1 edit. That's it. If you get 2, you're lucky. So you have to learn how to do this yourself. Put yourself into a Pitch Wars mentor type of situation to be editing your book before you start querying. Make sure, even if you're going to self-publish, I always strongly recommend writing your query letter or writing your back blurb before you self-publish. Because that will really help you figure out, do we have the character conflicts and stakes that we need in the book? Okay, so this kind of leads us straight into our second hurdle. Our second step in the publishing process is finding an agent. Now, agents want to be found. They want your books. Because agents and publishing houses do not acquire people, they do not reach out to acquire people very often, okay? They just don't. That is a unicorn. You hear about the girl who wrote The Love Hypothesis, okay? So she was writing on Wattpad, and she wrote this Rey and Kylo Star Wars fan fiction, and the the agent loved the fan fiction so much, he reached out to the author and said, look, do you have a novel in you that's similar to this Raylo fan fiction that you just wrote? Could you write me this novel? And that's how she got an agent. It's kind of like the way Bridgerton got a TV series. The producer read the books, fell in love with them, and decided that she went to Netflix and pitched it to Netflix. You know, we need to buy the rights for these books so we can have this series. And Netflix was like, oh, okay, we'll do that. We've got the money. This does not happen. This is a unicorn. This is winning the lottery. You know, this is like, oh, you do fan art of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Avatar: The Last Airbender people contact you to make you an animator. It's a unicorn, and you know you hear about it, and you're like, and you can be really happy for these people, but you gotta realize it's just like winning the lottery. So you are applying for a job with an agent. As a freelancer, you are looking for an agent to apply to a job at a publishing house, basically. So you have to find the agents part of your job is finding the agents that are in your genre and doing your age group. You do not want to send your book out to 300 random agents. That just means you're not doing your research, and they're just going to throw you in the slush pile and, you know, maybe eventually blacklist you because it's a small community. So where can you find agents? Okay. Publishers Marketplace. So Publisher Marketplace has a website, and they also do a print book every single year. And on the website, agents can register to be on the website, and they also can pay to be printed in the book in the index. You do not have to buy the book unless you really, 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 really like the articles in it. Just go to Amazon, look inside, go to the back of the index, and there will be lists of agent there. When I last checked, it was sorted by genre. And then you can use those names to Google them up and find their websites. You can use Query Tracker. Query Tracker is basically a website that helps you keep track of your queries. So, you know, you queried this author, how long does it take them to get back? And it collates data from everybody who's been using the site to know how long does it take to this person get back to people? What type of things have they bought? How many people have they put under contract in the last couple of years? You know, things like that. Publishing Marketplace can help you with that too if you're interested about those statistics. But Query Tracker is kind of, you know, keeps a little. You don't have to go searching for the information quite as much. And then you got Agent Query, which is a free kind of database of agents. Or you can even use the manuscript wishlist site. So say you have a specific type, the basic concept, the basic tropes of your manuscript. So you can go to manuscript wishlist and look through the agents and see in your genre and your age group and see, are they looking for anything similar to your manuscript right now, and query those agents first. Now, the manuscript wishlist is a double-edged sword because a lot of what you may have written might have the same general concepts, but they have a totally different story idea in their head. So, like, they'll get your book and you'll be like, well, it's the same concepts, but they don't get excited about it because it's not the exact idea that they were looking for when they put out there on the manuscript wish list that they were looking for this thing. So, you know, maybe it will help. Maybe it won't. You can do, there are on Twitter pitch things for different categories at different times of the year, or you can participate again in pitch wars where you pitch your book in hopes to be selected by an agent who will mentor you through the editing process of your book before you put it out to editors, and hopefully you'll get, picked up by a publishing house. Hey, this leads straight into the third step. So, hey, you've gotten an agent. And your agent maybe you were lucky they were an editor, they had a few suggestions, so you tweaked your book a little bit, you sent it back to the agent, they reread it, and they're like, yay, that's a whole lot better, let's send this to editors. So they send it out to editors at different, they start sending it to editors. And it becomes yet another query process where you're sending it out to 4 or 5 different editors at a time. They have your pitching materials basically, and the editor will then decide whether or not they're excited about this project enough that they want to read through your now twice edited manuscript at least, and see if there's something that needs to be changed before they turn around and pitch it to the publishing house. So this could take months again, and editing is, as always, suggestions. You don't have to take these suggestions from these different the editors associated with publishing houses. And so sometimes they might be small things, or sometimes it might be something really big that, they see the core of your story could work just as well for, you have a story about werewolves and they want a story about cat girls, okay? It's just what they, editors are a little bit more hooked into what is going to be selling in the next couple of years, what the trends that the publishing houses are trying to push. So they see what's hot, what's coming up and what's hot, and in the forecasting. So they're trying to push your book to be a little bit more quote unquote trendy. So you might get more sales out of it. That when they pitch it to the publisher will be more excited because, oh, this book is on trend and we're going to make money off of it because publishing is a business. So you have to get through that hurdle of actually getting an editor, because this isn't guaranteed either. So, okay, so you've gotten your agent. That took you maybe 2 years. Gotten through the editor. Maybe that took another 6 months to a year. The editor is going to turn around and is going to pitch it to the publishing house in prints. And this is where we enter one you might not have thought about: the sales team. So your agent can be excited. Your editor could be excited. You could have imprints in the publishing house excited about your book. Everybody's like, they're getting ready to, do an auction or something like that. They're fighting back and forth over who's going to represent this book. Or maybe, you're an established author and you've had a book series with this imprint and now you want to do another book series within the imprint. And the sales team goes and runs numbers. What I mean by running numbers, and this happens in every single corporation that there is, and if they tell you that they don't do this, they're lying, is they run a profit and loss statement type of thing. So the sales force here are the ones going, this is how much money we're going to put out for marketing. This can be anything from advanced reader copies to making sure that it's in front of specific reviewers, which might need money. It's going to be going out to different book buyers at different particular Barnes and Nobles and Books A Million and different indie book publishers. This is going to be arcs for other reviewers, for social media influencers. It could be, are you going to do a book launch party? Are you going to do a book tour for the author? How much is going to go, how much is the book cover going to cost? How much is the formatting and editing going to cost? And how much is going to be the print price? And how many books are we going to print? Okay, that's all this type of money that's going to go out versus the sales of how many books do they expect to get back. They will use comparison numbers. They will either use, if you are a debut number, they're going to compare you to authors of similar demographics and see, well, how many books did this author of a similar demographic sell? Now, if you're a person of color, this is really tough because they don't seem to care as much about your genre. They care more about the color of your skin. And so they'll compare you to another author of color, and that author of color might not have done well, so they aren't willing to pick you up because that author of color didn't do well. It's ridiculous. It is really, really ridiculous. I mean, you would hope that the writing and that the genre and the target age group would matter more than the color of the skin that you don't have any control over. Okay, no, it doesn't, and it's awful. It's horrible. I condemn it completely. Um, so they'll if you're a debut, they'll run the comparison numbers. If you're an established author, they're gonna run the numbers from the books that you've already published. And then they're going to decide whether or not this book is going to sell enough copies to be worth being published. And if you're a debut author and the publishing house says no, and the sales team says no, then you have to go to a completely different publishing house to another sales team. And be like, hey, I have this great book. This publisher rejected it. Maybe you want to pick it up just to spite them. Do not underestimate the power of petty spite. So the sales team, is deciding yay or nay. Now, if you're an established author and the sales team is like tells the imprint that you're with, yeah, we don't want to publish this book. You think, okay, well, maybe it's in the back of your head here and it still hasn't made it to the front of your head here. Okay, so it's in the back of your head. Well, the sales team has spoken. This book doesn't have a chance, but you're still hopeful. So the imprint's like, oh, no, I've got a friend at another imprint within the publishing company and they're gonna love this book. I'll go send it to them. Okay, so the imprint transfers the book and the author to the other imprint, and it's like, this author has been really good to me, and please take care of them, whatever. So the imprint's like really excited. Okay, this book fits in with our imprint too. We love the book, yada yada. And they're getting all prepared to publish the book, to put it through all the steps to get it publishing. And the sales team, behind the scenes, without the author knowing, without the agent knowing, the sales team picks up the phone, finds out about it, picks up the phone, calls up the imprint, goes, no, we've already run the numbers. That book's not going to sell well enough to make enough profit. We're not going to carry the book. Have a good day. Bye. So the imprint has to call up the agent to tell the author, the publishing house is not going to carry your book. It's not an imprint problem. It's a publishing house problem because the sales team has decided that the profit and loss statement is not enough. They're not going to make enough profit. So you, as an author, now have to take your book, and you have to run through this whole process again to see if another publishing house will pick up the book. So that's what I mean by you got 5 chances right now, and you're gonna have 4 chances because Simon & Schuster, being owned by Viacom, who doesn't want to do books anymore, they're going to be selling Simon & Schuster one way or the other, either to another book publisher or to a private investment group who might chop it up into little bits, and we don't know what will happen. Okay, we don't know what's going to happen there. And either way, it's not really great for publishing. So that's what I mean by when I said in my Department of Justice versus Penguin Random Houses, you have 5 chances. You have 5 chances for the sales team to run a profit and loss statement on your book and decide whether or not it's going to make the publishing house overall enough money to them to justify having an imprint actually print, do all the work to get the imprint, to get it in print and onto shelves. And most of us don't think about that here in the back of our heads and in front of our, move it to the forward of our brain because we're just not in sales. And, I mean, I think I think about it, I know about it, but I don't always, I don't always articulate it properly, I guess. I'm sorry. I mean, as an office person, every single week at my father's company, I would run a profit and loss statement so that, we could see how much money over the week, over the month, over the year that the company was making every single week of profit and loss. And we didn't do projections like that. We didn't do projections because we weren't that type of corporation. We didn't have like a sales team because we weren't that type of corporation, but it's still there. That's how it works in a normal corporation. Is you do have a marketing sales team that will make decisions about products, and they see your book not as a creative art endeavor but as a product to be sold. Okay, so but hey, maybe the sales team's like, yes, your book is going to make a profit, we're going to earn back most of the advance really quickly, and we're really happy with that. It's going to be really popular, so they invest in some book launches, and maybe you get a book tour. Maybe they like, hey, maybe everybody's doing options nowadays. Make sure she gets option for a movie deal or whatever. Everybody's getting options. Everybody, like, make sure that there's enough copies to go out to different influencers. Maybe she needs to turn up at Dragon Con or something and have like have 100 copies to hand out to people. So, or stuff like that. Okay. So they put in a sales push behind your book, making you and you're like, okay, it's gonna go on the shelves. We're getting there. We are almost to the finish line. But this means them doing a sales push means the advanced reader copies are going out, and you have one hurdle left. The readers. This is the one that can be hurt the most. Okay? As an author, I do not recommend you read your reviews. Just don't do it. Do you have a friend? Maybe your editor? Maybe somebody else can go through and read these reviews for you, because reviews can really hurt. They might say 100 good things about your book, and then they're going to say that one thing that just hits you right here, and it sticks to you, set you off, okay? Because it's your baby. It's your creativity. It's your baby, and it's really hard to get to that point where, no, they actually really liked my book. They just wanted one thing better. Just like, that's actually a really good review. Or, on a bad review, on somebody leaving you a 1-star or 2-star review, it's just, okay, the book was not for them. If you put all this heart and soul and all this editing work into it and everything. Okay, the book is not for them. It's just not their type of book. It sucks that they feel they have to leave a 2-star review, but it's not their type of book. Really, I don't recommend reading. And sometimes, being I'm self-employed, being an indie author, I don't always have a choice to go in because I have to get my own marketing materials out of these reviews. So sometimes I'll be like looking for, I'll look at the 4 or 5-star reviews, and sometimes, I'll like want to be skipping past this 2-star review, and I'll go back to this 2-star review, and I'll be like, did you actually pay attention while you were reading my book, or were you just skimming? Because, okay, never mind. I don't think this book was for you. Moving on. But there can, so when you have these advanced reader copies going out, this is now so far out of your control that, it's really, really scary, because what are the readers going to think? And here's what can happen. This can go 2 or 3 ways. And now you have the good way where you get the 3-star reviews, the 4-star reviews. Your book is not going to come out with a bang, but it's not going to go out with a whimper either. You can think, okay, I'm gonna get some moderately decent sales here. And then you can get the really good ones. Everybody's giving a 5-star review. They're raving about the book. They really want, they're telling all their friends. You're getting pre-sales out the wazoo. The publisher's going, oh my God, we're gonna have to do another print run type of thing. That's really exciting. That's really great. That is what you want when you put out these advanced reader copies to, the book talkers and the booktubers and, the people on Twitter. That's the type of hype you want. And then there's the, oh no, you offended somebody brigade. And this is the one you absolutely do not want. You've gone through this entire process. It could have taken anywhere from 3 to 4 years to get your book from first edit to actually on the shelves. From starting, you get it edited and then you start your first query to getting it on the shelves. And so, and then somebody is reading the book and they take offense. Whether it's justified or not justified, at this point, it does not matter. Because they will go on their social media, to Goodreads, to, whatever they're using, and they will leave you a 1-star review calling you some of the worst names that, you can think of. And if they have friends who may or may not have read the book, this will start kind of like an avalanche of bad press. And if there's enough bad press, and if it's, something, oh my God, this author is racist, which is just always great when, I have seen this, it's this type of accusation is really hard to defend against, because it's hard to, to prove it's hard to prove something that's a falsehood kind of thing, something that, so they will start this avalanche of negative reviews and the review bombing. And if it gets bad enough, okay, the publisher will get weary and leery and everything, and they'll pull the book. That is the most painful thing. I mean, it is the most painful thing. You have almost reached the finish line, and the publisher has decided that the publicity surrounding your book is so bad that they don't want to be associated with it. So they just pull the book. And sometimes, it could be a sentence or two, and it could be fixed. Other times, but the negativity is already out there. So, you never get this first chance again to make a good impression. So, even if you do decide to republish the book again, you're going to have to do a whole new name, title, whatever, in order to get it out there, and hope that these reviewers don't notice that it's the same book under a different name, or something like that. Most of the time, it doesn't happen. Most of the time, they just put the book on a shelf and they go write a different book, because there's no way you can get past that negative publicity to have your book make it onto a shelf and make enough sales to justify the print cost. So, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard on an author when that happens. So, honestly, folks, don't read your negative reviews unless everybody's review bombing you. then it's kind of like, okay, what happened? How I went through 3 or 4 editors. What slipped through in all these different isms that shouldn't have slipped through? Yeah. And you just, it's just a fact of life. You are going to get negative reviews, and the only thing that you can do is, like, don't engage. Don't engage. Honest to God, don't engage with those reviews. Like, that only makes things worse if you engage with them. Like, and there's no amount of apologizing on the internet that you can do and, to make things right, because they're just going to drag something up you did 2 or 3 years ago that have nothing to do with the argument now. So, the only thing you can do is change your behavior and be sincere about it, basically, and, continue on. So that's basically the last hurdle. And once your book gets down on the shelves and people are reading it, yay! You've published a book, it's gotten on the shelves, and hey, you have succeeded. And hopefully your book will sell more than a dozen copies to your friends and relatives. So, I mean, those are basically the hurdles. So, finding yourself a editor or a writer's group, or teaching yourself to self-edit, getting the agent, getting the editor from a publishing house to consider your book, getting the publishing house to, the sales force at the publishing house to go, okay, this book is going to make us a profit, so let's print the book, and then getting all these reviewers to actually, say good things about the book, whether or not, or maybe they won't say good things about the book. So, and then finally, your book gets out on shelves, having that social media proof to everything that your book is decent enough to be read, or good, or amazing, or, whatever adjective all your reviewers are using. So that's kind of your hurdles to publishing, whether or not you thought about them or not. And hopefully, whatever happens with Simon & Schuster, we will still have all these chances to get our books published from agent to the publishing house through the Salesforce thing. And until then, we have 5 sales forces going yay or nay, and maybe there'll be 4 sales forces going yay or nay, or in the future. Hard to say. So I hope this made sense. I probably should have done little post-it notes, Hey, thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Bless, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.